It's not just that Ironsi cannot be exonerated, it's that Ironsi knew everything about what happened. And why do I say these things? Because, like I said, the best way to understand history, especially history like this, is to read from multiple sources. So you get opinions from different people. For instance, you read from Njoku's book. He mentioned in that book that Ironsi twice in the meeting said, but they said they will not kill anybody. Who talks like that? By the way, Njoku is not a Yoruba man. He became the head of Biafran army. What makes the book you are citing credible? Thank you for asking the question. Let me quickly answer you. All right. Let me answer that question. So number one, I don't quote a book. Just to say that to you first. So I'm not quoting a book. On this particular topic, believe it or not, I've used more than a dozen books. And that's why I said it's a lot of work. So let me just start by telling you some of the books. This is one. This is Ironsi. It's written by an Igbo man. This is Ironsi. This is Why We Struck. Some I will not bring it up because I think they're back inside the library. This is Why We Struck. This is Nzogu. This is Emeka. This is Gowon. In there is Tragedy Without Heroes by Njoku. There is Nigeria's Five Majors by Bengbule. There's Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. There's Crisis and Conflict, Volume 1, Volume 2 by A.H.M. Kirk-Green. Then we've quoted from Beckon to Serve by Shehu Shagari. There is Fola Yewale's interview and his book Reluctant Rebel. There is Reminisce by David Ejo and his interview as well. Now that's about a dozen. Now let me tell you how this works. When I read something from one, I look out for that incident in others. When I see corroborating data, I'm able to piece those things together to be able to establish the truth of what happened. The point is not that the book I'm reading is better than every other book. I even read from this book as well. There was A Country by Tino Achebe and Biafran Story by Frederick Forsyth. I think it's even more than a dozen books for these sessions alone. What you discover is that a person who is lying is not corroborated by any other person. And the reason I cannot believe that person is because he was not even present. For instance, Frederick Forsyth was not there, but he was just writing as if he was right there. But when you read Akinjide's account, for instance, that's another source, Akinjide. When you read Richard Akinjide's account and you read Shehu Shagari's account, they tally. That means there's something there. And then you discover that when you read, for instance, Njoku's account, and then you read Gowon's account in this book, Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman, when you compare those two sources, they tally. Meanwhile, everything that tallies from Gowon and Njoku, from Akinjide and Shehu Shagari, you will not find it in a book like this. You will not find it in There Was a Country, and you will not find it in Biafran Story, because those three books were written from an Igbo perspective. The closest, even that one is not very objective, but the closest you would come to seeing somebody actually telling you stuff is Nigeria's Five Majors. But even he was still trying to glorify Ironsi. But at least he mentioned that the people that were supposed to kill him were the ones who destroyed the coup itself. What he didn't know, in fact, I just remember another source right now. Oh boy, how many books have we read yet in the last few days? There's another source I just remember. I quoted it we read it last week. It's called the Special Branch Report of April 1966. What you will see from the Special Branch Report, for instance, is that the people who planned the coup are the same people that Bengbule is saying they were treacherous and betrayed the other officers. So what does that tell you as a human being? The point is not that which book is telling me that. No, is that I can put all these things together, sit down as a person who goes scuba, and say, okay, you can recreate the scene. based on the account of everybody, especially the eyewitnesses, and even those who have written about it, and then you can decide what the truth is. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Having read all the books I've mentioned and more on this matter, interestingly, I was going to order another book I found another book yesterday that I'm going to get on this same matter. If I finish early, I'll probably drive down to a new library I just found out online. Here's the point. When you sit down and study these things, let me tell you the conclusion you will come to, unless you are deceiving yourself. This is the conclusion. Number one, 1964, there was a political crisis between Balewa and Azikiwe, and it was becoming a tug of war between both of them. And if you read this book, which one? This one. If you read this book, you see what Ojukwu did in 1964. Ojukwu gathered a group of officers and started asking them, wait guys, if we have conflicting orders from the president and the prime minister, who would you listen to? That was his question to them. Now, when he asked the question, according to this book by Frederick Forsyth, who is Ojukwu's pal and who is a propagandist on behalf of Biafra, because he worked for Biafra. And that's why when you read this book, you will just be laughing, because guy just makes everything up. But again, even if there's a saying, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Even if it's broken, it will be correct twice a day. So that's why I read even from sources I don't like, because I think that there might be something to pick from there. So let me tell you what I picked from this book. 1964 political crisis. Around that time, Ojukwu, asked officers, if we have conflicting orders from the president and the prime minister, who would you obey? And then they started saying, oh, who are you going to obey? They didn't have the answer to that kind of question. Then according to this book, Yakubu Gowon went to ask the GOC at the time. His name is Welby Everard. And Welby Everard called Ojukwu. Then according to these guys, Ojukwu now had a meeting with them and now asked the same question. Welby then goes ahead to talk to the Attorney General. The Attorney General then told him that, listen, if something like that happens, you are going to, if I let me read to you what it says here. I want to recreate everything again, like we've done before, just in case you were not here. He says, under no. The general consulted the Attorney General and got the ruling. It was clear, in the event of conflict, the officer corps should obey the democratically elected political leader of the country, the Prime Minister, or his subordinate, the Defense Minister. So that's what he said. After hearing this, now go and read Reminisce by David Ejo. What would you find there? You will find that Ojukwu did indeed plan a coup in 1964, and he mentioned the names of the officers that they planned the coup with. It was Bassi. Then he went to reach 3 more people. He called Victor Banjo, he called David Ejo, he called Yakubu Gowon. Banjo agreed to work with Ojukwu. This is from Reminisce. Then Ejo and Gowon reported to Foster. So what are you seeing here? You are seeing that the reason for this must have been because of the question that Ojukwu asked in Frederick Forsyth's book about who people would follow, and knowing now that you cannot expect the soldiers to follow the president. They will follow the prime minister as per the law. Your person is the president. Meanwhile, there is another document, I did not refer to that earlier. It's called The Forgotten Documents of the Nigerian Civil War. Is by Odia Ofemom. In that book, Odia mentioned that in 64 there were rumors that Ojukwu had met with Azikiwe. Oh boy, this is, I think now we have gone through so many books in the last few days. People of God, this thing is sweet. He had gone to talk to Azikiwe about taking over the government, but Azikiwe said no. That was in 1964. And then by the time David Ejo then spoke to Foster called all the boys together, all the officers together, and told them don't do any of this coup and everything. So it would be this is going to be the conclusion on that particular subject matter. Because of Foster's intervention and Azikiwe's refusal to be part of that coup in 1964, Ojukwu then stopped working on it. What I just said right now, you're going to have to read at least 4 or 5 books to even come to terms with that. And then you can now decide, now this is my own decision, having studied like that. As I've studied that one, on that particular matter, you can study on different matters. For instance, the coup of 66. If you read this book, he says, oh, we started planning it. I was one of the first 3. It was myself, it was Nzogu, and Ifajuna. The 3 of us planned the coup. That's what you find from this book. And that's the book, that's the reason most people always shout is, if you talk about the coup, they'll tell you, but there's a day where go and read this book. I mean, I'm just like, what are you talking about? You cannot build a thesis on one source. How? You're going to appear like a fool. They ask you questions about everything, you're just mentioning one book as if it's gospel from heaven. What if his view is wrong? And guess what? His view is wrong. How do I know? Because there's another book called Special Branch Report of 1966. And what would you find there? That the original planners were Ifajuna, Okafor, and Oji. And that the 3 of them brought in Anufuro. Anufuro brought in Nzogu. Nzogu brought in this man. They started planning the coup in August. They got into the mix in October. And he thinks he was one of the original planners. If you just go with this book alone, just be insulting everybody, it was a revolution. It was not. It was a revolution for him. It was a revolution for Nzogu. It was definitely not a revolution for Ifajuna. The point is, the answer to the question from one book is in another book. The point is that we have to be disciplined enough to study these things and then put everything together. Why are you exonerating Emeka Ifajuna? I'm not. I just read to you from Olusegun Obasanjo. You know what Obasanjo called Ifajuna? Let me read to you. And I think is an apt description, because the guy was a coward. The guy who caused wahala and run away. He caused wahala in Lagos, ran to Enugu. They're supposed to kill the man in Enugu. They didn't kill him. He ran again to Ghana. Let me read to you what Obasanjo thought of Emmanuel Ifajuna. Don't be biased. Once a member of this class. Okay. Let me read to you what he says. What was intriguing was the similarity of character between Emmanuel Ifajuna and Chukwuma Nzogu, as far as their militancy in school was concerned. But that was as far as it went. Ifajuna could be described as a courageous coward. In all his cases of leading protests at school and college, he deftly escaped being caught and punished as a ringleader. On the other hand, Chukwuma stood out and allowed nobody else to take the blame. He bore the responsibilities and consequences of leadership. This is what you discover. He caused the wahala in Lagos, ran to Enugu. From Enugu, he ran to Ghana. As a matter of fact, the people, have you ever had something as a leader? Even if you're a class captain in secondary school, you must have experienced this. You are leading a team. It's your idea. You came up with a plan. You have 3 people, then it grew and grew. You planned the coup. You ran away and left the people that joined the coup to be prosecuting it. By 2:15 p.m. on the 15th of January 1966, Ifajuna was in Enugu. The people he put in charge, they were still in Lagos. At 4:30 p.m., this man was still trying to find his way out of Ijebu-Ode. That's Ademoyiga. Number one, he was not a leader.